If you're doing things on Tuesday nights or on the toilet or first thing in the morning, these are where you're going to be making bad decisions and getting all of your assets stolen away from you. Supply chain is one of the first use cases I got involved in, and it makes a lot of sense. Well, the most important identities on blockchain are going to be the most important identities in the real world. Who are they? And if you got something like Tether, which is waiting, like the biggest exit scam that never happened yet.
Today, we are together with William Entricken, the lead author of ERC-721, which is the standard that most of the NFTs are created. Hi, William. How are you feeling today?
Great. Hello, good to catch up.
And thank you. Firstly, thank you for your Ethereum improvement proposal. It was the day it all started. And can you explain us in your words what NFT is? It's the main question, I think.
This definition has gotten simpler and simpler over time as I've told it to people. So I'll give you the easiest and the simplest. So if we're speaking in English, non-fungible means a serial number, and token literally means just worthless. So that's what the word tokens means. And it's funny because if you speak another language, they might use a slightly different word or like a representative. In Chinese, we use a dai. So that's like, or a bi, right? So that means representing something. But in English, it really just means worthless. So it's a worthless serial number. And maybe a very modest introduction to what is an NFT. So really an NFT is a serial number that is just a number. So you can't get too excited about a number, but you've got to get excited about something. So this number actually attaches to something else. And that is what allows blockchains to connect to everything in the world, is with these serial numbers.
Yeah, it was a little easy and complicated answer, and thank you for that. And can you tell about what's your background and how did you become passionate about the smart contracts and come up with ERC-721?
Absolutely. So I didn't come up with it, but I did get it past the finish line, in the words of Dieter Shirley. So my background's in engineering, finance. I went to school for electrical, computer engineering, math, and then finance, international finance. And really my background in technology is in open source. I got started with Google at the very first, what is now called Google Summer of Code. It's been going strong. I was at the first one before it was even called that. And this was a mentorship program for online training where you would meet with a mentor somewhere in the world, work from home, contribute to open source. And this is decades before the pandemic. So I'm got right working professionally into open source before it was a thing, right? Before GitHub, before all that stuff. I see the path. I mean, I knew that this was going to be the right path for me. I didn't know it was going to be this big everywhere. And I've always been in open source projects, creating mentorship programs like the one I was in, boarding people, growing projects, and just helping wherever I can, just being the contributor, right? And Ethereum comes along, which I completely ignored. I completely ignored blockchain, completely uninspiring applications. All of them were probably just illegal. Well, this is back when Bitcoin was, right? So I looked at Bitcoin and I said, okay, well, this is just money for fentanyl, right? This is just heroin. All of this is heroin. And so I saw this is not something I want to get involved with at all, full stop. And my neighbor, Rob Leschner, back from high school, buddies for forever, he started Compound Finance. And he says, Will, come start something crazy with me. We're going to do DeFi. We're going to move to California. I said, well, what is it? Well, we're going to help people borrow money in tokens and give it to other people's loans. I said, that sounds like it needs to be registered with the SEC. I was like, none of this is inspiring at all. I don't want to do any of this stuff. So Rob tells me, hey, well, look into Ethereum, find something else. You're going to get inspired by something. Go make a name for yourself. I said, all right, hang up. And just from the timing, I opened up Ethereum. What the hottest thing was in 2017 and was these pictures of cats. And I saw it. And it was the contrast, right? In my mind, is just no money, dark markets. That's the whole thing. Bitcoin is evading taxes, laundering money. And then pictures of cats, the most wholesome thing. There's nobody dying from these pictures. I was like, oh, this is an actual legitimate application. And some people might think, well, pictures of cats, is that really like a viable? Yes, YouTube was just videos of cats back in the day, right? So I just immediately saw, I said, this is it. This is the viable application. We've got a lot of technology. We've got a lot of really interested people. And now we have something that's legitimate that makes this whole thing worthwhile. So I went full in on these cats, right? So I was looking at the cats. I'm like, all right, well, how do I do something like this? How do I build? How do I teach? How do I learn? And then I saw ERC-721 and it was on GitHub. It was this issue where it was just sitting there for months, no progress and just stuck. And the reason why is because Dieter Shirley, Axiom Zen, now Dapper Labs, working on this. They're like, we got two problems. One is standardizing NFTs, and two is selling cats. And one of these became very, very exciting very quickly. So obviously this technical spec just sat there. And so this was the alignment of the clouds, right? So I come in, background in engineering and business, open source, experienced in mentoring people. I come in, there's this stagnant EIP or standardization prospect for NFTs. I'm super interested in this project and we have to standardize this. Oh, and PS, nobody else in the room has gone through this type of standardization, mentorship, community leadership for an open source project. I said, this is it. I said, I'm going to work super hard. So this was the inspiring moment for me, where I was like, okay, this is the calling.
Yeah. Thank you. That was inspiring. But in these days, we are getting trouble with the market because there was we hear many horror stories about hacking, phishing attacks, and social engineering hacks. What advice do you give people to stay safe in blockchain?
I guess the basic advice is if you're going to be getting in and out of things quickly, you need to have a hot wallet. You got to have one wallet, got a few wallets for this stupid stuff that you're going to do. If you're going to make poor decisions, do it that way. If you're going to make important decisions, use a physical device and lock it in a closet and give a copy to your friends or something. And all these things aren't like, I need to do it now. Like, you don't need to do it. That's every time that is where the problems are coming. I think, oh, I've got to get this free thing, or there's a great deal. It is not a free thing. It is not a great deal. Or if it is a free thing, use a separate wallet for that. Use your blowaway identity. When you have really big opportunities, call your friend, say, hey, I want to double check this. Yes, you should call your friend. Make it one day a week, right? So if you've got things that are worth more than $1,000, only do it on Saturdays when your friends are awake. If you're doing things on Tuesday nights or on the toilet or first thing in the morning, these are where you're going to be making bad decisions and getting all of your assets stolen away from you. And that's what you want to avoid.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And there's a lot of people suffered from this and they gone from the whole ecosystem. And I hope to solve this problem. And ERC 4337 is planning to be deployed in the future on Ethereum. And as far as I know, it's a draft for now, but it aims to enable easy onboarding of new people by account abstraction. What's your opinion about it?
So account abstraction, the goal here is, and this has been in discussion for a little while, quite a while, and we've got to figure out a way that we can, there's a few things that this is trying to achieve. One of them is zero gas transactions, moving the gas around. Another one is soft wallets, where we can have contracts or other ways to share ownership of a thing. And then third is something that we're currently using DAOs or Gnosis wallets for, bringing that something to a more native solution. There's a lot of these different specific things that are sitting around here. And this is one solution to all of them, is to kind of just abstract away all of these problems. In computer science, we have a very famous thing that says all problems in computer science can be solved with adding a layer of abstraction, except for the problem of too many layers of abstraction. So this is a technique that cleanly just carves these problems out. And I think before we get here, I would like to see more centralization around something like Gnosis or payment lockers. There's a few solutions like Gnosis, the safe wallets that are out there. And I would like to see them really used a lot. Like, everybody should be using those. That's the point that we should standardize this into an account abstraction. I think right now, there's not enough motivation here to do that. That's why it's a draft for a few years, right? So, I mean, it's a good idea, but there's a lot more that you can do with the existing system here.
We can maybe jump into what we can do with ERC 721. Because we have a lot of real life problems we can solve with it. And what do you think about the future of blockchain and NFT? Which real life problems can we solve with the help of NFTs, such as supply chain, identity, or data privacy? What do you think about it?
These are great questions. These are definitely forward thinking. Supply chain is one of the first use cases I got involved in, and it makes a lot of sense. Supply chain makes a lot of sense also because, just like you asked in your previous question, you're thinking, okay, well, how do we onboard new people? How do we scale this? Well, for supply chain, you don't actually need to onboard people to use supply chain NFTs. You don't need the end customer to do anything. It's not necessary for them to install, create wallets, participate whatsoever. So using supply chain and the assurance that blockchain has, the assurance, the immutability, the authentication of records is enough to solve a lot of problems. So for example, one of the problems in supply chain, let's say in Europe, right? So in Europe, we've got the digital pass, the EU product passports. that's going to be tracking the inputs that are going into
Yes.
the products that are across the borders, right? That is a very European solution. We will have probably something very different in the United States, and probably nothing or something even different than that in China. So there's different solutions out there. But the thing that we care about and what we're realizing is that when you buy the new iPhone, that is contributing to global warming. You don't see it. The phone's, it's small, it's in a very easy to ship container, and that's all you see. But there's a lot behind it. There's the machines that build the machines, there's the machines that build the chips that go into the components, which go into the modules, that go into the boards, that go into the phone. There's a lot inside of that, and you don't see any of it. So that's kind of the beauty of having a all-in-one platform and something welded together that you can't take apart. It's not like old cars where you can be like, oh, there's parts inside here. You have no idea what's in the iPhone. But for other products, even clothing, there's a lot of things in this supply chain. So I'm just talking about just sustainability, environmental impact. That's one direction. As we are allowing the vendors to be tracked or somehow verifiable, this will really play into the initiatives that governments now have around climate sustainability, reducing carbon, things like that. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not here to argue for or against the role of government in these situations, because government can do it and industry can do it as well. So I'm not here to debate that, but I'm just saying that if there's an interest, and there's an interest at the consumer level to see products with more sustainable inputs or verifiable inputs, then that is something that blockchain, digital signatures, NFTs, they all support this. Now, I'll be very clear. All these use cases you're talking about, supply chain, data privacy, can work just as well without blockchain as with blockchain. There's nothing magic about blockchain here. The thing that blockchain has, digital security, signed messages using public key cryptography, public identities, signing messages, irrevocability, immutable things, smart contracts, all of these things can be done and standardized using existing Web2 technology. So there's nothing magic about it. However, it just happens to be we've got all these things on the shelf. They're all bundled up and ready to go. And PS, there's a lot of people that are really excited about it. And so that's why NFTs are usually winning the bid to get these initiatives done. So again, I'm not here to even push NFTs to say you can do this, but really more importantly, what I'd be more happy to say is that the things that we've learned here, using NFTs or not, means we're going to make significant progress on supply chain identity, data privacy. Okay, so that's supply chain. That's one specific thing, is just tracking the inputs through the supply chain, through all this stuff. And zero knowledge proofs too. That's another fundamental technology that people aren't really going to understand ever, but it's going to solve these problems a little bit. The second part is ownership and fraud. So if you've got a thing and you want to know that it's legitimate, this is something that you need to track through the supply chain. Specifically, I got involved with drugs, pharmaceutical companies that were using NFTs for this validation of product authenticity. And going to parties with some of these executives in this field, I just learned exactly how many fake drugs there are on the shelves. And I don't mean like illegal drugs, I mean like drugs that you give your kids.
Yes.
And there are ridiculous amount that are just not, they're fraudulent, not authorized, wrong, out of spec, all of these things somehow not approved by the brand. And there's a lot of people in the supply chain. So we've got shippers and movers and mixers and APIs and brand, product manufacturer, subordinates all across contract staffing. It's a ridiculous amount of complexity here. And that's why when you go to the shelf, there's a very large chance, scary chance, that the things you're giving to your kids are not the right drugs. They're just not it. They probably don't die. They usually don't. Once in a while they do. And then when somebody does die, they do an investigation. They're like, oh, that wasn't even supposed to be on the damn shelf. It's like, oh, great. You should have told me this before my kid died, right? So this is really impacting a lot of people. The drug companies know it, and it's a very difficult thing to solve. That's why drug companies are one of the first movers on enterprise supply chain NFTs. So that it just lines up. Tracking authenticity. I also work on luxury goods, and so they also have a strong incentive to prevent fraud. But these are use cases that they make sense, they're working. It just takes 10 years to roll out. So if you're wondering like, well, why aren't these on the shelf? They're on the shelf. Also, they're not telling you that they're on the shelf because it doesn't matter. It's just less fake drugs, more good drugs. It's working. They don't need to brag about it. They probably don't even want you to know that they're improving. Okay, like less in the news is good. So, but for luxury goods, they probably will take the time to tell you like, we're using this technology, we're keeping, because they want to promote the value and they want to say these things are more valuable, right? So that's supply chain as a use case. Next, identity. Identity makes so much sense. And again, these techniques have been around for 20, 30 years, ever since the web. We have friend of a friend, FOFs, if you remember that. We have GPG, PGP. These things have been around forever. Actually, there wasn't just any hype around them, which is why they never took off. And also, people didn't know HTML back then. People weren't making their own websites. This is before WordPress And so they couldn't even do these things. But now you can run FOFs all day and you can sign things. You're going to be seeing people sign more things. And the most important identities, people think, oh, we need digital identity, we need NFTs, we need blockchain. Well, the most important identities on blockchain are going to be the most important identities in the real world. Who are they? Governments. Governments are the most important identities on blockchain, on Web 2, in real life. They're the ones who have the guns, who can literally kill people that do bad things, right? So somebody shows up to your door with a badge, that badge is an identity attestation. So these are the things that are going to be important. How do you do it? Really easy. You just use some more digital cryptography. Now, we don't have to use blockchain or NFTs for any of this stuff. Eventually we will in some use cases, some we don't, but it's easier to just explain to you when we're not. Signed PDF files. We should see a lot more signed PDF files. PDF specifically has some serious problems and you can forge PDF files, so don't use that. But just imagine if there's a PDF file and it was signed, you're like, oh, these are my tax records. They could email your tax records from the US, and that even hearing emailing and tax records is like, I know in other countries they actually do that, but here we're very far, we're 20 years away from that. So just imagine a future where you could just go on a website and upload your taxes and it is not a fraudulent website. And your browser's like, this is a government website, and you get a green check mark. And the thing, like, oh, these are records. Oh, and you could print them out and you could scan them and you could validate them and you can give them to other people and they can validate them. And you can prove it in a court of law. You can be like, oh, I got this record. And they show up in court, like, oh, we didn't send that. And we're like, yeah, you did. And then someone in the court scans it. They're like, yep, that's valid. These are the things in the future that they're going to happen. Where you're like, oh, this, that's just digital stuff. That's how the digital world works. You scan things, you verify them. That all depends on digital. That doesn't work if you've got deniability. Someone walks in the room, they're like, oh, I didn't sign that. Someone else signed that. Oh, I lost my password. That wasn't the government document. The government lost our government password. I think there's going to be none of that. We're like, here's your account. There's no password. Here's your identity. You used it afterwards. You used it before. We have high confidence. This is your identity. Here's your system that signed the message. It's an authentic message. Nowadays, when we're faxing papers, we don't have QR codes on everything. It's very difficult to even validate business records. This is crazy. Again, I know some other countries, I don't know how Turkey is, but you go to Taiwan, you buy noodles on the side of the road, and it comes out, and it's got a QR code for tax reasons. And you can scan it and you're like, oh, they paid tax on this transaction. So that's very close to what we're talking about. Mexico has this as well. Not as much for food stands and tacos, but Taiwan has it even for things on the side of the street because they have a lottery attached. That is the future. And PS, that QR code is an NFT. When you have a ticket, when you have a transaction, Factivo, and it is attached to a unique transaction and is authenticated and government sees it, that is an NFT. Now, it's not a blockchain NFT, but these are the types of things we're doing. So that's really exciting. Governments will see this and be like, wait a minute. Governments in the US, which are losing money, they're going to go bankrupt to the States, right? And they're like, wait a minute, you're getting restaurants to pay taxes? United States, notoriously, restaurants don't pay taxes. A lot of things are just cash and they really don't pay taxes. And somebody from the US government at the local level would go to Taiwan and be like, how'd you get everyone to pay taxes? You put QR codes on the receipts. You make a lottery. You get people excited about receipts. You get people excited about scanning receipts because they might win something. This is how these ideas spread. So once you implement that, that's the future. So we're going to get there. And NFT, the ecosystem around NFT is just a nice bucket of good ideas that you can just deploy all at once, or you can just steal the ideas anyway. Data privacy, I got nothing for you. There's nothing about data privacy that is helped by NFTs or blockchain. Now, data access and proving access to data, that's a different thing. So maybe you've got a health record and you want to allow somebody to access it and they want to know that you allowed it. That's not a privacy issue. That's an authorization issue. That we've got some help for you.
But in these days, when we sign in any website or anything else, we need to fill up a lot of information, or we are sending the photography of our identity. But with the help of NFTs, maybe we can allow some information to take them and use them and don't store them. It could be a way to use a database, I think. For example, when I have a website, I need to hold a database in my server now. But in the future, maybe we can use NFTs as a database because they are storing the data, but we don't need to hold them in mind. We can just use it and let it go. It could be a way to save our data, because when we use even social media or any website, we are giving a lot of data to them and they are processing them for their goods, but it can also harm the society because they can use it in other ways without our permission. And it could be a solution, in my belief.
Couple things here. Okay, so when you do business with somebody,
Yeah.
they want to collect data from you. There's two reasons people want to collect data from you. One is because they have to. The other one is because they want to.
Yeah.
For example, if you're working with a bank, they have to collect your data. If the bank could do business with you without collecting data, they would, because they would get more customers. People will give data, but more people will not give data. You got two options: click here or click here and fill out this form. Click here wins. So if you could open a bank account with an email address, you would. They don't let you do that because government requires certain information for you for a lot of reasons. So in the banking world, I've heard people say, well, we'll make an NFT token that just says approved person. No, if the bank was allowed to have an approved person, they would have an approved person. They would have figured that out already. Think of how smart the people are working on blockchain stuff, and then think of how smart the people are working on bank stuff. Bank people are not idiots, and they are incentivized more. People working on blockchain stuff are like, I might get rich. Banking people are like, I'm already rich, and I can get more rich if I do this thing. So they are incentivized and they are well resourced. So those things are not going to become possible because of blockchain for banks. Required information collection. The second one is because they want it. Why does Facebook want to have all of your information? When you log in as Facebook, why does it want to know whether you're a man, a woman, in between, neither, both? Why do they care about that? Because men, women, and in between get served different ads, and they make money based on this information. So they're collecting it because they want to collect it. So there's no amount of privacy that's going to make them not want that information, because it's going to cost them money to do that. So from those two categories, from banks and the Facebooks of the world, they're just not going to be doing this ever. Now, we've got a lot of marginal players. So for the marginal players, we've got things like, oh, maybe there's some easy commerce I can do. Maybe I can buy this thing on this website, but I don't want to give them my email address, because then they'll give me an email every day for the rest of my damn life.
Yeah.
So that's an experience we have. So there's two solutions. One is you can use a third party. You can use PayPal, and I use PayPal. And surprisingly, when I use PayPal to buy things, I know that they're receiving my email address, but they don't spam me, because PayPal tells them not to spam me or they'll take their money away. And that works. They even have my email address, and that's not spamming me. But if I sign up on the website with my email address, they will spam me. So I quickly learned that PayPal is that having an intermediary that protects you helps. Blockchain is interesting too, because your blockchain, your login is connected to your tokens. So if they want your tokens and they want you to log in, they don't care about your name. They don't care about your email address. They might like your email address, but they care more about your tokens. They're like, just give me your tokens. So you click, log in, give tokens, they win. And if they can do that quickly, it works. So this is something that is achieved by blockchain for lower value transactions, because tokens can be used to trade for things. But there are other solutions here too. So the real world can work on this too. I still have yet to see PayPal where you can just buy something on PayPal and not give them your email address. This is an obvious thing that PayPal will come out with. When you use Craigslist and you create a posting on Craigslist and somebody replies, they do not get your email address. Craigslist will intermediate. It's called an email relay. PayPal should have an email relay. I don't know if they have it yet. I don't think they don't, because people have bought things from me on PayPal and I get their email address. So PayPal should intermediate themselves and not give out email addresses. That's an obvious thing. So that will happen, or somebody like PayPal will do that one day, and you can do a blockchain too.
Yeah. Also, in addition to these, there is also another solution which is used now, which is VRL market. VRL is virtual in real life, but it aims to solve problem in secondary market, I think, because you are buying some stuff and you are putting it to Amazon, and when somebody is purchased it, you are also shipping that to them. But there's a lot of shipping transactions in between them, and VRL maybe can solve this problem. What do you think about it?
So we're got it. So you're talking about an asset that is purchased as for financial reasons.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I call this something else. I call these custodied assets. So this is a very important use case. That's probably going to be the most valuable use case of NFTs, what you're talking about. So we're taking items in the real world, custodying them. Not the person who's holding it just wants beneficial ownership. They just want to speculate on the price or hedge, or there's a lot of reasons you might want to do this. And we're going to commoditize things. They're not really commodities. Maybe they are. We're going to hold them like commodities and then sell them later. This is a huge use case, very similar to the way that commodities change today. So you've got oil, the oil's graded. So we've got different grade of oil, or we've got everything has a grade. So we've got orange juice is graded, different layers, milk. And so you give them a certain amount of money, you get a certain amount beneficially held. It is held in an exchange. It's held by somebody who's holding it. And the whole transaction, the marketplace is backed by an exchange. It's a highly regulated thing because there's very well-known risks, counterparty risks that we need to manage. A very important case study recently is nickel that people should study that are interested in this stuff. But there still needs to be a centralized party that is the counterparty to transactions. There are certain people in this world that are really well prepared to do something like this, and they just don't understand how money they are. One of them is Christie's. Christie's will make more money holding art than selling art. Been working with them for 5 years to explain this. Like, they sort of get it. Some people there get it. Christie's is an art, right? So everybody trusts them. The things are going through Christie's. They just need to sit there. And again, they would make more money just holding stuff for other people than trading them. This is just one use case. eBay is working on shoes. Shoes is a huge one. I don't know if shoes is a long-term thing, but artwork, wine, the storage of artwork, wine, shoes, watches, these are really important things. That's kind of like the premium. But also the same technique can be held for PlayStation 5s, Xboxes. Like, this whole concept you're explaining works for toilet paper, Xboxes, PlayStation 5, Louis Vuitton bags, Birkin bags, shoes. They can all be done using the same business model. It's a really important business model.
And what do you think about regulations and the governments? Will it happen in the soon, or is there any light coming to us? The accepting or regulating cryptocurrencies or the application of NFTs in real life problems, because we need some regulators from governments to accept these in businesses.
Yeah. So those are two totally different questions. So on the one, for value fungible tokens, the question is, are blockchain tokens, are they a commodity? Are they a currency? Are they a security? This is a very important question. And I'm just going to give you a straight answer that really makes a lot of sense. And this is not legal advice, but the answer is just spend 30 seconds looking at it and decide for yourself. I've never seen any confusion. There's something that really looks like a security. Usually you open the website, you're like, that's a security. And then there's something that really looks like a currency, because you look at it, you're like, that's a currency. And then everything else is just a commodity. So it really makes a lot of sense. You don't have to think too hard about it. Now, the government, they will fight about this, and there's even turf wars among the government in the same country to figure out which agency is going to be responsible. That will get there. But for me, I think it's really easy to see if there's any type of a yield. That is a security. If there's anybody who's making promises to you about the future, that's a security. If you've got something that is a regulated entity held by somebody with a banking license with their address published on their website, that's a currency. That represents a currency, at least. And if you got something like Tether, which is waiting, like the biggest exit scam that never happened yet, that's nothing. They're just going to take your money and just disappear. Hey, I've got 70 billion in the bank. Oh, PS, no, but they never actually, did you sign a contract with Tether? I didn't. So there's no requirement for them to pay me back the 70 billion that we put in, right? So they're just waiting for an exit scam. So you don't have to think too hard. You just be like, wow, Tether, it looks like an exit scam. There's no audits. There's no address on their website. It just says Hong Kong. There's literally no address. There's no banking license that I can see. People are saying it's a scam. What is Tether? It's a scam. It looks like a scam. It smells like a scam. I'm saying it's very likely to be a scam, and you should just not think too much about that. USDC, Circle, Coinbase, there's a public company traded in the United States, regulated by banks. So you should think of that more like a currency. It's really easy, and you don't have to think too hard. The regulation will catch up. I'm working on it. I go to NFT Tallinn, talk with regulators. How do we spell these things out a little more clearly? And even when they spell it out, you'll see these slimy companies be like, well, we've really got, they absolutely have a security, and they're going to try to make it look like a currency. Like, they're going to do, you should ignore the sliminess. Just look at it very plainly, no more than 30 seconds. You can easily figure out what these things are. And if it takes more than 30 seconds, the government's not going to figure it out either. So just, that's where those are going to go. Luckily, the governments are pretty permissive. So they're not like flagging people for just buying or selling Bitcoin. That's not happening. They're flagging people because they're buying Bitcoin and selling it for fentanyl. It's the fentanyl. It's, hey, we're doing lots of illegal things with drugs and this and that, and we're using Bitcoin. And they're going after them. And then the news will say, seized Bitcoin. Bitcoin's illegal. No, Bitcoin's not illegal, sort of. The fentanyl's illegal. So you really don't have to think too hard about this stuff. NFTs are another thing. NFTs just have this thing about them that makes them so much more not securities than other stuff. They're all different, hopefully. Each one of them has a serial number. They're unique. They're just, it's pretty clear. But if you see an NFT where it's like, you should buy it from us, and we'll buy it back from you for 20% more next year, that's a Ponzi scheme. That's what that is. And it's unregulated security. So probably it's unregulated because nobody would allow them to write that down. So just spend 30 seconds looking at it, be a little realistic and stop. If you think you're going to open a web page, they're going to offer you free money, and the year's 2023, you're not going to get that free money. Maybe in the year 2008, maybe in 2008, it's like click here for 20 Bitcoin for free. That might be a thing, but you're late. You're late. All the free things have been gotten. All of the free, the 1000x returns, that's 1000x returns, and now even 1000% or even 10% returns. You're not going to get. So you're not going to make money by just clicking on a website and something going to the moon, right? So that's not going to happen. You are very late. So if you're just a little bit, I guess the word is not having hubris here. If you're not like, oh, I'm the one who found this. I'm the one who found this website and I'm gonna get 1000x. Like, no, you didn't find shit, right? You've been duped. They're scamming you. It's happening. So just realize that you're late, that you're not gonna get even 2x return or 1x return. You just might get into something that's usable or practical or something like that. And you're gonna save yourself a lot of heartache. Also, you're gonna avoid, if you're not selling this stuff, you're gonna avoid a lot of lawsuits because a lot of these people are gonna get in trouble. They're gonna do in time. And they can't do these things.
I think that was the last question I had, and thank you for answering all my questions. I am humbled to make this happen with you. And do you have anything to say to the audience?
Well, yeah, I want to ask about Horizen. So I want to see the events that are coming up. And I want to talk about that for one sec. It's just because another question I get sometimes is like, what didn't you expect? I've been here for a little bit, and what is the thing I didn't expect in this scene? And the answer is the events. So I knew that these pictures of cats were going to become insane. I knew that there were going to be copies of them. I knew there's going to be fraud. I knew there's going to be people making a lot of money, people losing a lot of money. And I saw all this happening. What I didn't expect is the communities and the events. So if you're not going to the events, you're really missing out. Check out NFT Horizen or wherever else, however you find your events, right? But that's the important thing. So don't skip over the human aspect.
Yeah.